Welcome back to the channel. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and roll your notifications to all so you don't miss any of the demonic content. In honor of Christmas, we're going to be looking at one of the more demonic customs that runs through some portions of Europe, and one which has recently been in the eyes of filmmakers, the Krampus. Beginning around 2015, movie buffs were treated to a rash of horror, and often horror comedy, movies that included the titular character. Often these films paint the Krampus as something of a Satanic Santa, a characterization which does little justice to the rich mythology and history of the Krampus, a portion of which we'll be covering today. The first thing you might note is that I'm using the definite article, the Krampus, instead of Krampus. As Ridenour, the only author who has published an English-language book on the figure, notes, quote, Krampus is not really an individual's name, but a class of entity, example, vampire, not Dracula, end quote. Likewise, he notes that the plural is Krampusa rather than Krampuses or Krampi. I've adopted this convention of singulars and plurals here, since a disproportionate amount of the research for this video is based upon his book. Both to support this research and to learn more about the Krampus, I would recommend picking up his book, The Krampus and the Old Dark Christmas, Roots and Rebirth of the Folkloric Devil. For those who read German, there's also an edited volume entitled Wild und Schön, der Krampus in Salzburger Land, or Wild and Beautiful, the Krampus in the Salzburg area, which contains 17 ethnographies of the Krampus Run, or Krampuslauf. This Krampuslauf is the tradition for which the Krampus is most well known. The Krampuslauf is a kind of parade which often features several Krampusse who are held in check by St. Nicholas, and often other figures such as angels and someone carrying a large basket full of treats. The Krampusse amble through town and sometimes into people's houses, often focusing their attention on the children of the area and giving them a hearty fright. The key here, as Ridenour argues, is that it is often a safe fright. Actors gather into troupes to perform these partially rehearsed and partially improvised scenes, and when two troupes encounter each other, there may be a faux combat between the Krampusse as their respective St. Nicholases retreat to corners and drink schnapps and observe. Ridenour notes that the tradition of the Krampuslauf is largely a product of the Alpine region of Europe, but is an extension of the dark figures of Christmas, which have been largely neglected and scrubbed from the American experience. He notes other examples of this tradition, such as Wren Day in Ireland, in which wren boys will kill a bird and present it upon a pole, the Marie Lloyd of Wales, in which a horse skull and a sheet is paraded around town, and even a native Pennsylvania tradition of the Belschnickel, a man dressed in furs who would chase people with a whip, made recently famous by Dwight in The Office. More specifically, the Krampus is a phenomenon of what is sometimes termed the dark companion of Christmas. This is the idea that jolly old St. Nick, or rather St. Nicholas, is accompanied by a figure of punishment who metes out retribution to bad children. Some of you may be asking, well, why is a saint accompanied by a demon? I, of course, would respond, when is a saint not accompanied by a demon? That is, most often when we consider monastic literature or saints' lives, we quickly come to a simple conclusion. The sanctity of a saint is often proved through their contact with demons. Christian authors often saw this through the lens of Job. God proved that people were truly holy by giving them over into Satan's power to be tested. Demonic seducers, draconic consumption, and devilishly implanted thoughts were just a small subset of things the prospective saint could look forward to enjoying at diabolical hands. Instead, let's zero in on a more informative question. Why this particular demon? That is, why does the Krampus accompany St. Nicholas in the areas of this tradition? Ridenour notes that passion plays and other holiday stagecraft likely started such associations, but the connection I find the most interesting is in the relationship that the Krampus has with Perchta, a kind of witch or mountain spirit. In his Deutsche Mythologie, Jacob Grimm claims that Perchta is a regional name for Hulda, whom he claims is a pre-Christian Germanic goddess. Well, this may have been appealing to Grimm since he saw folklore as a kind of cover for earlier pre-Christian ideas. John B. Smith has noted in his evocatively titled Perchta the Belly-Slitter and Her Kin that Perchta is likely a personification of fast and feast days, a conclusion which is, quote, entirely in harmony with a general medieval tendency, end quote, to engage in such personifications. Thus, the belly-slitting of Perchta's myth probably relates to consumption and lack thereof. The figure Perchta is associated with Hulda, or sometimes Hulda Hut Hole, also has a witchy kind of background. She became one of the principal figures mentioned in regard to the wild chase or wild hunt, and Bouchard de Vannes isolates Hulda as the witchy figure who leads this company of demons across the land. If you're interested in this topic, see Martha Rampton's Trafficking with Demons for more information. Returning to Smith, he notes that Hulda's name is often cognate with other Scandinavian sorceress figures and woodland spirits, such as Hule, Huldre, and Huldre, and that some interpretations of the name Hola stem from a, quote, misreading of medieval Latin texts, which in fact contain a word meaning simply demon, end quote. Belly-slitting aside, in the 17th century we find a description of the Perchtenlauf, a kind of parade in which the singular figure Perchta has instead become a plurality of witches or mountain spirits, the Perchten. St. Nicholas was probably introduced into these parades as a moralizing figure. Ridenour notes that Nicholas is often depicted in morality plays as schooling or quizzing schoolboys on their lessons in disguise. As the moralizing figure, he shackles the Perchten, who eventually develop into the Krampus. Why does the figure persist? As Ridenour argues, the Krampus is decidedly not the Satanic Santa that Hollywood has been depicting it as. Rather, he notes that there are several positive features to this Christmas devil, and that, quote, those who view the whole production in terms of harsh adult discipline overlook how intimately the house visit is attuned to the child's world of imagination. The encounter is made uniquely childlike and meaningful as it is played out by larger-than-life figures. Success in the encounter banishes ravening horned monsters to the frozen outdoors and brings a small gift and gentle words from a regal man with whiskers like clouds and hat like a church. Perhaps we could benefit from a little more of the Krampus or other dark companions of Christmas, even as adults. Ridenour concludes by noting, quote, the Alpine devil is visceral and physical in a way that few figures are. Smelling of animal hides and wet snow, he pushes forward, assaulting your ears with his bells, shoving through spectators with a force unknown in polite society. And then, of all things, he hits you. What better stimulant could there be for a leisure-numb society passing its days moving from one glow screen representation of the world to another? The devil hits us, and whether we laugh or scream, at least we are now truly awake, experiencing the real world fully and standing before a myth.